Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Ben Jones, Senior Index Specialist with Nasdaq Index Research. Ben, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Thanks, Jill. It's amazing to see how 2020's flown by, right? The holidays are here. It's almost 2022. It's gone by so fast.
It has gone by fast, and I appreciate all the work that your team has put into Trade Talks this year. And I think today's a great day, our last Index and Trade Talks segment for 2021, to kind of put a neat little bow on all the content that you and Mark have provided us through the year, talking about key themes that you've been covering. And let's start with cybersecurity. We've done a ton of work on it.
We really have. I mean, it's been front and center. I think I've argued that 2021, I mean, it can be the year of a lot of different things, but it's been the year of cybersecurity. And you kind of maybe put it above some of these other important themes that we've talked about, right? Or maybe not above, but just alongside, right? We talked about buybacks, we talked about capital strength, the quality with low volatility. We've talked about, how investors can access income through the 7-handle index, and the battle between growth and value as a major theme. And of course, the rise of small cap that we saw earlier this year. But time and time again, we saw cybersecurity rise front and center via, just developments in the marketplace and society and the news, which is the rise of ransomware and all these breaches and hacks. And it really started in December 2020 with the SolarWinds breach. But we've also seen some interesting, performance trends play out in this theme as well. So I would put cybersecurity up there as an important theme in 2021. And it affects you, it affects me. I mean, Cybersecurity Ventures, they say that we're going to have about a ransomware attack every 11 seconds, in 2021 and probably 2022. That's up from 40 seconds in 2016. So just massive changes there. And the investment opportunity is there as well. If you just look at the amount of cybersecurity spending, Jill, going forward, we see IDC and Bloomberg says about, we should see about a 9.4%, compound annual growth rate in security spending over the next, in this 4-year period on average, versus 4.9% for traditional IT spending. So almost 2 times the amount of spending in cybersecurity. And if you just look at the performance for these indexes, we are a leading provider of cybersecurity indexes with exchange traded funds around the world tracking Nasdaq cybersecurity indexes. And you can see how the performance for the most part has been positive. We have seen some volatility, Jill, over the last few weeks. And so I think it's going to be important to watch going forward in 2022, because who knows, maybe cybersecurity will be another important theme next year, just like it was in 2021. And you could argue it was an important theme last year as well in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And of course, this is something that we've been talking about more as we get into the end of the year. Some volatility has come back into the market. We're starting to see some rotation here. But of course, the energy trade, as much as we talk about renewables and green energy and so forth, we still need to think about the energy and infrastructure that's currently in place.
Without a doubt, right? I mean, if you look at a lot of sector performance in 2021, energy has been one of the leaders. And, if you look at one particular index, the Dorsey Wright, Technical Leaders Energy Index, which, tries to identify, high momentum, high relative strength energy companies, you can see it's up 71% in 2021 versus about 21% for the Nasdaq US Equity Benchmark Index. And so we've seen plenty of outperformance from energy. And I think this is part of, that growth and value trade that we've talked about. I think this is also where we've seen the rise of, some of those alternative assets, the rise of inflation. It's part of that narrative, I think, to some extent, and even just the improvement in the economy, right? As we start off in 2021, with, some of that momentum carrying forward in the late 2020, as the economy improved, we did see energy rebound, but you could just see the type of momentum that was in this energy index. But we've also seen just, sector rotation in general, again, away from those, traditional growth areas like technology into some other industries. And we can measure this looking at the Dorsey Wright Focus 5 Index. In 2021, we've seen a rotation out of technology and into industrials. And just recently, we highlighted this a couple weeks ago, or actually last week rather, was into an energy position as well. So you can see how some of these sector rotation models are now more diversified, where they begin to underweight technology and have allocations to other industries. And in this case, industrials and energy going forward. So I think that's another important thing to watch, is that we've seen volatility the last few weeks that typically leads to rotation. So if this volatility increases or is the new status quo and is the new normal, we'll most likely continue to see rotation going forward in 2022.
And finally, Ben, let's wrap up and talk about Nasdaq 100 ESG.
Yes, I mean, again, time and time again, we talk about innovation, we talk about the leaders, and Nasdaq is the home of that. And one way of measuring that is through the Nasdaq-100, the largest non-financial companies listed on the Nasdaq stock market. But we're very proud of launching the Nasdaq-100 ESG index, and we launched it in June of this year. And that gives investors another way of tracking and accessing this space, but through an ESG lens, giving you a choice. And this is important, right? And so we are leveraging Morningstar's industry-leading Sustainalytics ESG data methodology to create the ESG string for this index. And you can see that the performance has been there, both for the Nasdaq ESG index over the last 6 months, as well as just the Nasdaq-100 in general. So I think the important thing, Jill, is that, again, we are innovating and we're developing new indexes within the Nasdaq index team, and especially within Nasdaq index R&D. And I think this is one interesting index to pay attention to going forward, especially for investors who are paying attention to the Nasdaq-100, but are looking to see it from an ESG lens. And the Nasdaq-100 ESG index is one that is for you. So definitely pay attention to that. And that's going to be an important thing going forward, as he talked about infrastructure and clean energy and just everything that is involved around ESG, defense and military, and health and life and value based. If those are important investor preferences for you and your clients, this is an important index to look at to measure that performance of the Nasdaq-100 with that ESG screen.
All right. Sounds good, Ben. Appreciate the insight. And thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.